The Star Wars universe is constantly expanding.
But how the heck are you going to keep tabs on it without a holocron? And where in the rim can I score the juiciest news and rumors?
Ah, you seek State of the Empire, Consequence of Sound's Star Wars speculation podcast, where we look for news in all the wrong places.
We dig into the Sarlacc pit of the internet for the hottest intel in the galaxy far, far away. Make Indiana Jones inquiries and keep watch for the latest on Willow.
Find us on consequenceofsound.net or wherever you procure fine podcasts. It's the show you're looking for. Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With, an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Wherever you're listening from today, please do hit the subscribe button, and if it's a place where you can leave a rating and a review, that'd be awesome as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest is Gary Louris of the Jayhawks. They've got a brand new record coming out called Backroads and Abandoned Motels, and the whole concept this time is all the songs that Gary Louris had co-written or written for other folks, re-recorded through the Jayhawks lens. We talk a lot about the ins and outs of the record, as well as working with Ray Davies on his latest LPs, their involvement with the Johnny Cash Forever Words album, and a very interesting update on Golden Smog. It's Kyle Meredith with the Jayhawks.
Backroads and Abandoned Motels. This is a really cool project, as we're hearing about a lot of the songs that you've co-written over the years for the other artists. What brought it on now? Why now?
Well, it was suggested by this guy, John Jackson at Sony Legacy, who we got to know in the late, around 2009 when we were reissuing Jayhawks records through Sony Legacy. And he ended up being this huge fan, and he became a good friend, and turned out, he plays. He's a good player, and he's a kind of young guy, and he started flying into dates and sitting in with us and kind of really became a member. So he's kind of a member when he can. He has a regular job, but he's always looking out for things to make people think of the Jayhawks or what ways to promote us, and because he really believes in us. And he's the guy who connected us with Ray Davies, and he said, he knew we were kind of in between records, and he said Sony would love to put out something where, just to show people, showcase your songwriting, and thought, it would be really cool to hear the Jayhawks do these songs I wrote with and for other people.
With co-writing, I mean, in one sense, maybe being in a band, you've always been co-writing, but these songs, they were probably different, I'm guessing. Is it very different?
It's quite a bit different. For one thing, you're writing, especially when you're writing with the artist, they're going to end up making it their own, putting it on their record. It represents what they want to say. So you really have to keep a two-way street going, an open door, and really kind of try to get out of them what they want to say, as opposed to when you're making your own record, you can pretty much say whatever you feel. So it's a collaboration. Sometimes it's a compromise. Sometimes it's just you learn something. It's a synergy, and you try not to put so much of yourself into it that it drowns out the other voice. So there's an art form definitely to co-writing.
I'm sure every song kind of asks for its own thing, but are there rules with this where you said you had to stay true to the original, or do you try to give it your own personal touch now that it's just you this time around?
Well, I think that's part of the appeal of doing this, is that we can do it the way we want to do it. And I will say that I'm happy with all the versions that people recorded, and that's not just saying that. But when you co-write something, you kind of, once you're done writing, you kind of hand it off and let go of the baby, and it goes off to grow up in another, on somebody else's record, and other than the Dixie Chicks. Well, I guess I played on the Kerry Rodriguez record too, but some of these I wasn't involved in the recording, so it was really nice to just say, well, maybe I want this to be a little faster, maybe a little different key, maybe a little slightly different, humbler production. But, the arrangements in themselves weren't drastically different because I liked how they were, and there was no reason to reinvent it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great names on here. Of course, you mentioned the Dixie Chicks. It's hard not to bring that one up because that was such a monumental record to be a part of. that must have been felt in your career. Was that felt in your career like immediately when a record that big happens and you're a part of it in any way?
Not as much as I thought. I thought the phone would, and I've talked to other writers on the project, thought maybe the phone would just ring off the hook, but it didn't really, and I think it's because the Dixie Chicks were kind of unto themselves. They're kind of, they weren't a straight country act, and especially at that point, and so it didn't change my life. I made some money, but not retirement money, but yeah, it was a pretty important time, though, to be for them, and they had things they wanted to say. And, there's other songs. I really enjoyed work with Jakob Dylan, who was a friend of mine and doesn't do a lot of co-writing, and we wrote a song called Gonna Be a Darkness, which is one of my favorites, and that was on the True Blood soundtrack. So that, again, that was a whole different thing because Jakob doesn't really co-write that much, and or didn't at least, and so it was a real honor to do it with him.
And in a couple of the others, co-writes with Wild Feathers and Emerson Hart, you did those, but those were never released, right?
Right. The Wild Feathers, we wrote a couple songs when I met them in L.A., and we wrote and recorded demoed two songs in one day, and they recorded one of them for their previous record. It's called American, I think it's called. And but we did this Backwards Women, which I really just had a little special place for it in my heart, and they never really didn't fit in with them or something, and so I'm excited for all these people to kind of hear what we did with it, because most of these people haven't heard our versions yet. So, and Emerson Hart is just a really good friend of mine who we met just co-writing. They put us together to do some writing, and ended up we wrote a bunch of songs and we're hoping to make a record and just haven't gotten around to it. But a long time ago, which is on this record, was the first one we wrote together, and that's the cool thing about co-writing. Sometimes you walk into a room, meet somebody, write, and after 4 hours you become really good friends.
I guess what we're all
kind of
hoping
like
for.
Speed dating.
Right.
Speed dating. Yeah.
And sort of circling back around in that same idea too. I didn't know that "Come Crying to Me," which was released on Natalie Maine's a solo record, had been around for that long. So that, as I understand, that had been around in those initial Dixie Chicks sessions, right?
Right. That was the first song that we wrote together. And we did that down in Austin, Texas. It was when I first met them, and they had me come down, and we wrote, and didn't really hear anything back for a month or so. And then thinking, well, nothing more will come out of that. And then I got the call to come out to L.A. and continue writing. So Come Crying to Me was the first one, and it just didn't quite make it onto their record. And but Natalie must have liked it enough that she put it on her solo record.
Yeah, we loved that one around here too. I don't remember that ever being an official single off that record, but man, did we play it a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just loved it. And I'd love to hear, I haven't heard myself the two new songs, but I'm really interested to hear Carry You to Safety and Leaving Detroit. So these are not co-writes. It sort of breaks the rules, right?
Right. Well, we kind of just threw a little, candy at the end, a little bit of, for people who maybe had we just kind of did that because I had a couple songs I really wanted to get on there, and they weren't co-writes, but they seemed to end the record nicely. Carry You to Safety is a song I wrote about my girlfriend when I met her, and I think she's really happy it's on the record, let's put it that way. And Leaving Detroit is kind of a dark Jimmy Webb kind of story about a bit of domestic violence and love and all kinds of weird things. Another thing that we seem to do is like a very pretty song with somewhat dark lyrics in them.
You made a career out of it, one that's made a lot of us very happy. Yeah. There's and I know there's some other things happening. The second Ray Davies record is coming out, and you guys are part of that again?
Yep, that's coming out June 29th, I think. I'm not positive, but yeah, I was real honored to be a part of that whole project. One of my childhood heroes, and now I can call him by first name and see him on the street. We would hang out. So it was a thrill.
Yeah. Now, when you call him by last name, do you do Davies or Davis?
Well, technically it's Davis, and I just have a hard time doing it because I just learned that last year, and I can't get my head around it. But that is the technical way that you're correct. That is the way to say it.
Now, were both sessions recorded at once, or are those two different sessions,
No.
Volume 1 and 2?
2 different sessions, split up by maybe a year or a little less. We always knew there was going to be another record, but yeah, those were split up. So 2 separate trips to London to record at Conch Studios, which was cool.
And then I know there's anniversary editions. I want to mention those as well. Vagabonds, that's your solo record, one of your solo records, getting the 10th anniversary reissue. And there's extra tracks there, right?
There's a few extra tracks, I believe, and new photos, liner notes that weren't there before, and yeah, and it's on really high-quality vinyl, and they did a beautiful job, kind of a limited edition kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, is that just because it's turning 10, or is that one you had your eye on to get back out there?
Somebody's brought up the idea. Again, I wasn't really on top of it, but that's a really cool company, which his name escapes me right now, but they do these sort of things, and so I embraced that. And then we had that song on the Johnny Cash Words and Music record, where we kind of completed an unfinished Johnny Cash song along with a lot of other people, like Roseanne Cash and like Chris Cornell, Brad Paisley, Alison Krauss, a lot of great people on that record. That was cool. I recorded that. We recorded that while we were on the road. It was wherever My Morning Jacket's studio is. That was where we did that. So.
Oh, yeah, no, that's here in Louisville. Yeah, no, that's right, because the last time you were here, you were in the studio with me, and you kind of told me off the record after the interview, like, yeah, there's this Johnny Cash thing. Because I had just interviewed Chris Cornell. Yeah, that was in Louisville. I just interviewed Chris Cornell.
Okay.
And we were talking about that. I remember that now. That's, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we've had a lot of different things going on.
That's cool. And I'll wrap it up with, I also saw Golden Smog's down by the Mainstream's getting a reissue. I looked at that, and is a pair of records 10 years apart, and now it's been another 10 years, and I thought, if they're going to do it, we're due again. We're due for another Golden Smog.
It's really, really spooky that you brought that up, Kyle, is I just got a text about a half an hour ago from Jody Stevens, the drummer, who's in Big Star, and he works in Memphis at Ardent, and he was part of those records, and he just texted me and just said, "Hey, how are you? I miss you. Would you be interested? I've been listening to Weird Tales, and I wonder if, you want to do some more shows." And so that's funny. I just said, if you can talk the rest of the guys into it, I might be interested. So, a start would just be to play a few shows and see what happens, but no promises yet.
Yeah, that's still the best news that I've heard this minute.
That's funny that you brought that up just today. That's weird.
It's in the universe, man. The universe wants a new Golden Smog record.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, they reissued Golden's Weird Tales, and I think they're reissuing Down by the Old Mainstream, which is before that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting that too. And all of this, Backroads and Abandoned Motels, this is really cool. I'm so glad that you finally put these songs together under one roof. It's really great.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. It was nice talking to you, Kyle.
You too, Gary. And we'll see you around Louisville next time. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Hey, thanks to Gary Louris of the Jayhawks for that call right there. The brand new album is called Backroads and Abandoned Motels. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Consequence of Sound's YouTube channel to keep up with your favorite artists and interviews. If you're listening to the podcast, iTunes, Podchaser, or wherever you're listening from, please do give a rating and leave a review as well. And then head over to WFPK.org. That's where you hear me do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern. You can also find some bonus episodes of this series over there as well. I'm Kyle Meredith, and I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.